Good morning, everybody. I haven't usually done these early in the morning, but I figured might as well get it out of the way so that I don't have any excuses later in the day not to do this. The subject of this video is why so many Scientologists die of cancer. I can't say that I have any other control populations that I have any familiarity with. I do not know what the death rate is in society at large for cancer, but all I do know is that it seems like every Scientologist I know who dies of cancer. And I'm sure if I stay here long enough, I could think of exceptions to that, but I swear to God, it seems like it's the only way Scientologists die. And one of the obvious answers that people throw out on social media, I saw this was being discussed recently in the supporters of Leah Remini Facebook page. Actually, I forgot to make a plug for the page. If you have not yet joined the supporters of Leah Remini Facebook group, please do so. And the other thing I wanted to quickly plug was I did an interview, a 2-hour interview about Scientology with Based Mama. And 2 hours is a pretty long interview, but we actually packed a lot of information. We packed more information than you'd even expect into a 2-hour interview. So if you've watched a bunch of my videos or if you enjoy watching any of these videos by former Scientologists, definitely check that out. I'll post a link to it in the description below. And I completely lost my train of thought. Oh, one of the most common answers that people throw out there is the constant high levels of stress that Scientologists, particularly staff members and Sea Org members, are subjected to. I know that's one of those common sense things. However, common sense and medicine do not always fit hand in glove. I don't know of any studies, meaning I just haven't looked. I've got literally no clue. Don't know of any studies that show causation between just stress levels and cancer. Or high levels of vitamins and cancer, or the practice of auditing and cancer, or sitting in a sauna for 5 hours a day and cancer. I just have no idea, so I can't comment. But I wanted to comment on what part of the Scientology philosophy contributes to an atmosphere where so many people are dying of cancer. And it doesn't. Many people think that it's because Scientologists are prevented are prevented from taking drugs, any kind of drugs, medicines. And that is actually not true, although it kind of plays itself out that way. The only drug Scientologists are very specifically prohibited from taking is psychiatric drugs. And even then, Scientologists don't necessarily, from person to person, agree on what the definition of a psychiatric drug is. Sometimes it can even be non-psychiatric drugs that are prescribed by a psychiatrist. Like there might be a hard definition, but not all Scientologists know what that is, and they certainly don't agree on it. Even in the Sea organization, people do not agree on what is a psychiatric condition and what is a psychiatric medication. But aside from the fact that people don't have a hard, generally accepted definition for these things in Scientology, it is still true that the only drug Scientologists are outright told you're not allowed to take is psychiatric drugs. That having been said, because of many things Hubbard said on the subject of even non-psychiatric medications, there is somewhat of a culture in Scientology of not going to a doctor or not taking normal medications that your average non-Scientologist wouldn't even bat an eye at taking. So, all right, someone says, why are you online at 5 o'clock in the morning? Because for me, it's 8 o'clock in the morning. I live in Tampa Bay. Okay, so let's take something like Advil, a painkiller like Advil. There's nothing Hubbard wrote that says Scientologists aren't allowed to take Advil. And yet so many Scientologists will not take Advil, Tylenol, Motrin, or give it to their kids. And here's one of the reasons why. So like in Dianetics, there's some information that Hubbard wrote. There's some words Hubbard wrote about painkillers. And I might get this wrong. So if someone has this, if someone recalls this more clearly than me, just please mention it in the comments down below. That taking these painkillers that either makes you more susceptible to recording engrams or more susceptible to engrams being restimulated. And an engram in Dianetics is just a recording of a moment of pain or unconsciousness where everything that happens and is said is taken literally and recorded in the subconscious and can reactivate upon the person in a negative way at a later point in time. So because Hubbard said a few things about this in Dianetics, many Scientologists go, well, in order to be a good Scientologist and a good Dianeticist, we need to not take these things, because even though Hubbard didn't say you can't take them, he did say there are negative ramifications or possible negative ramifications for taking them. Therefore, you should not take them. even though he didn't say that. What's another example of that? Remember, Scientologists are also largely divided into two groups. Scientologists, one group would be those who have never started on the OT levels or done any of the OT levels. And the other group would be those who have. And the reason you could divide them up into those two groups is because your understanding of what Hubbard's philosophy about life is completely changes when you get onto the OT levels. And the OT levels are completely confidential. There's no Scientologist knows what's on the OT levels before they get onto them. And here's why that's important. Because in Dianetics, you're told that what's wrong with you is your reactive mind. And on the OT levels, you're told that what's wrong with you is something completely different. It's body thetans and thetan clusters, otherwise known as BTs and clusters. And let's go back to the point about Dianetics. Aside from the fact that there's this information in Dianetics that someone could take to be like, oh, you shouldn't take painkillers. The other thing that's in Dianetics is it says everything that's wrong with you is wrong with you because of your reactive mind. All of your illnesses, your doubts, your insecurities, your pains, you are told that these are a result of these engrams that are in your reactive mind, and your reactive mind is basically your subconscious, and that by using the counseling procedures in Dianetics, you can erase all of these engrams. The reactive mind is just a compilation of all these engrams and their derivatives. You can erase all these engrams and erase the reactive mind and fix everything that's wrong with you, is pretty much exactly what Dianetics says. So when a Scientologist falls ill, depending on just how deep they are into their belief of all of this, they are much more likely to address their illness from the point of Dianetics auditing and finding the engrams that are causing the illness. Again, this really depends on the level of belief, because this is not true for all Scientologists. But there's a tendency to definitely lean more heavily on finding out what it is about your reactive mind that's causing this illness than there is going to a doctor and getting diagnosed and taking a medication. There is a culture within Scientology of somewhat looking down on doctors as only treating symptoms of illnesses and not actually treating illnesses. And that only a Scientologist or a Dianeticist can actually treat the true cause of an illness, because only a Scientologist or a Dianeticist can deal with the reactive mind. That's pretty much what Tom Cruise meant in that black turtleneck video where he says when a Scientologist drives by a car accident, it's not like anything else. It's different because you know that you're the only one who can help. And a lot of people were like, what about the paramedics? What about an ambulance? And so what he meant by that is, yes, the paramedics need to come. Yes, first aid needs to be done. Yes, someone needs surgery if they need surgery. Someone needs a bone set if they need a bone set. But at the end of the day, the engram and the reactive mind is going to take whatever that injury was and essentially, through the mechanisms Hubbard describes in Dianetics, stick that injury to that person for most of the rest of their life. And so this creates a culture where people tend to, and again, I'm not trying to generalize, it's not everybody, tend to look down on doctors, or tend to look down on the importance of doctors or the value of doctors, that they don't truly understand the nature of life. And a Scientologist and a Dianeticist does. So that's at the lower levels, where a Scientologist thinks what's wrong with me is my reactive mind. It actually gets more insidious on the upper levels, on the OT levels. Because if you think that what's wrong with you is your reactive mind, that's bullshit, and that's going to cause you to make some decisions that don't make a lot of sense. But at least from a Scientological perspective, there's something you can do about that. You can audit the engrams in your reactive mind, and eventually, when your reactive mind is gone and the engrams are all gone, and you've had the realization that you've actually been the one creating this reactive mind for the last 76 trillion years or whatever, then Scientology calls you clear. You've reached the state of clear, and now you're supposed to be the semi-perfect being, as described in Dianetics, which no Scientologist has ever achieved. The reason it gets more insidious on the upper OT levels is because you're given a completely new philosophy on what's wrong with people and what's wrong with planet Earth and what's wrong with everybody. And it's these body things. Now, as a Scientologist, you already believe that you are a Thetan. Like that's Hubbard's word for the spirit, the soul. And you are a Thetan, you don't have a Thetan, and we're all Thetans, and everyone's a Thetan, and Thetans have always been, and they're, however you might define a supreme being or a god is somewhat how Scientologists define a Thetan, except we are all one. We are all one of those. And so what Hubbard says is that trillions of years ago, or billions of years ago, I always get this wrong when I'm recording about this subject, I just go blank on it. All of these Thetans were rounded up from a galaxy far, far away by Hello? I'm recording a video. All right, hold on. I always try to record videos when no one's home. So what you're told is that all of these Thetans were rounded up and and from a galaxy far, far away by an evil man named Xenu. And he brought them to Earth, and this was a population control thing. It was a population control. This part I think was just population control. And he dropped all these beings into volcanoes, and he blew them up with hydrogen bombs. And I don't know why I had to do both of those things. You think it would just be one or the other. And this created this huge mass numbers of these, I didn't know Tony's blog was down this morning. Huge numbers of these half-dead, semi-conscious beings just floating around the winds of the planet. And that after the human bodies evolved on this planet and we started, picking up these humanoid bodies, these Thetans that were really degraded and half-dead and whatever, they got to a point where they don't even realize they're Thetans. They don't even realize they're spirits anymore. They think they're objects. They're stuck to objects. They're stuck to bodies. They're stuck all over the environment. And they're called body Thetans in Scientology. So a normal Thetan that occupies a body is called a Thetan. And these half-dead Thetans that are stuck all over the place are called body Thetans. Tons of body Thetans can get together and think they're one Thetan. Or tons of body Thetans who don't know they're Thetans can get together and think they're one object. So on the OT levels, you have the word body Thetans and clusters, BTs and clusters. And on the OT levels, you are told that it's now no longer your reactive mind that's wrong with you. It's thousands and thousands and thousands of these BTs and clusters who are stuck to you and have their own reactive minds. And that all of these beings, they're not powerful enough to occupy their own body, but they are powerful enough to influence your thoughts and your feelings and to create pains and illnesses in your body. To me, that sounds so insidious to think that every time you are sick or have a chronic illness, Scientologists do think that it's because of some physical process going on in your body, but they think it's being caused by one of these beings or several of these beings. And if you are on the OT levels, I know so many people who fit into this category where, let's say someone's auditing on OT7 or they've already finished OT7 previously, and they get cancer. They believe, and they are told, that it is one of these body Thetans, or many of these body Thetans, that is giving them cancer. It is creating the cancer in them. And even if they did get a diagnosis from a doctor about the cancer, again, I don't want to generalize, but I'm going to say that even if they do get the diagnosis, many of these OTs in Scientology, they just call them OTs because they're on the OT levels, many of these OTs will just subject themselves to more and more auditing of these body Thetans. Because on the OT levels, that's what a Scientologist does. They audit these body Thetans telepathically with the e-meter. They hold the cans of the e-meter in one hand. They hold both cans in the same hand, separated so that they don't short circuit. They hold the 2 cans in one hand, and they're telepathically, they're thinking questions to themselves, but they believe they're asking these beings questions, and they're looking for reactions on the e-meter to locate these beings that are stuck in the environment and audit them and get them to wake up and realize they're a thetan and get rid of their reactive mind and go and pick up a body and live a good, honest life with a real body of their own. And even young Scientologists, I've seen Scientologists in their 30s and their 40s and their 50s get diagnosed with cancer and just get auditing these invisible, body thetans until the day they fucking drop dead of cancer. Now, at the same time, I have known Scientologists to go get chemotherapy. I have known Sea Org members to go get chemotherapy. I cannot tell you specifically what the difference is between those who have gotten chemo and those who have not. I know I have what I think the difference is. No one in Scientology is going to literally tell you, and please, if anyone's aware of specific instances that contradict this, please put it in the comments below. No one's going to say you are not allowed to get chemo. You're not going to get in trouble for getting chemo, but you're not going to be encouraged to get it either. And that's why I said I think this comes down to the varying levels of belief on behalf of each individual, and not just varying levels of belief, but also varying levels of how susceptible one is to being embarrassed by looking like maybe they don't completely believe in the information. Like someone might go, well, if I go and get chemo, it's going to look like I don't think Scientology works on me. And Scientologists do have this idea. They are conditioned to believe that the only reason Scientology would not work on you personally is if there was something wrong with you. And by something wrong with you, that usually means you are somehow a suppressive person, you secretly harbor to destroy everyone around you, or you are continuously committing destructive acts on the people around you and withholding this. Scientology calls that a destructive act against other people. Basically committing crimes. So either you're being a bad person or you are at heart a bad person. And I'm really giving the nutshell version here. But there is this culture in Scientology where Scientology will work on you unless you're doing bad things or are a bad person. And if you are really susceptible to being shamed and embarrassed about that, then you'll be less likely to want to actually go see a doctor, get proper therapies, take the proper drugs, get chemotherapy, and all these kind of things. If you are a true believer, then the only way you should be trying to resolve your illness is by resolving either the reactive mind or these body thetans and these thetan clusters. And that really is kind of just the core of what I wanted to explain. I would love, if anyone is aware of studies that link cancer to things like long-term chronic stress, or if there are any studies linking cancer to high doses of niacin and B1 and vitamin C and whatnot, but I just don't know. Even if you're aware of those studies, link them and I'll study them, because there's a million things that can be wrong with any study. And was there anything else that I wanted to say about this subject? I really don't think so. Let me pull up and see if there's any questions about this that I can take. All right, popping out the chat. One other thing that I had heard of, and I really just, from personal experience, can't swear to this, that the Freewinds was just chock full of this blue asbestos in the ducting and everything. I've heard about this, and a lot of the higher level Scientologists go to the Freewinds on a somewhat regular basis, and that perhaps there was something about the asbestos on the Freewinds that was causing cancer in those that spent a lot of time there, but I can't swear to that. All right, looking for some questions here. I'm just going to scroll through from the beginning. Lots of comments, but I'm looking for questions. All right, let's see. From Gloria Murray, what if they, quote, work on them and they still die because they obviously didn't get proper medical care? Do they blame it on the Scientologist because he wasn't focused enough or something like that? Yeah, it pretty much chalks it up to, well, we tried. You know, Scientologists have this idea that auditing only works and is only supposed to work when it's being done by a fully willing participant. And there's all sorts of ways to justify why auditing hasn't worked on someone. And it could be the issues that I mentioned before of either committing these huge overts or being a suppressive person or being PTS. PTS is just someone who's connected to a suppressive person. But you always have the fallback of, well, the person wasn't being a willing participant, or the person just... also, the thing about auditing these body thetans is oftentimes you're doing it's solo. You're doing it to yourself. Someone's not doing it to you. And so it's one of those things where you are both the auditor and the one who's being audited. And auditing people is considered a skill in Scientology. And if you're being tasked with auditing yourself, and who do you have to blame if the auditing doesn't work on you? You're the auditor, so you're the only one you can blame. So there's that thing. Well, maybe their auditing skills weren't up to par, or maybe this, or maybe that. There's all sorts of ways to explain away why someone spends so much time trying to fix the cancer with auditing and then they die anyway. There's so many ways Scientologists just explain that. Are those who seek medical treatment treated poorly or different? Not in my experience. One thing I'll say on this is, you know, I spoke to Tory Chrisman recently about her experience of not being allowed to take her epilepsy medication when she joined the Sea Org and when she was in Scientology. Eventually, she was allowed to take the medication, even while getting auditing and doing the OT levels, but she had to fight really hard for it. And one thing that she experienced the entire time, like even after she was allowed to take the medication, she experienced this constant pressure from people to come off of it, or the constant, oh, are you still on the medication? Are you still on the medication? Not, have you stopped taking your medication yet? But are you still on it? Oh, are you still taking it? Are you still taking it? Like every time she would get to like the next checkpoint or whatever, it would be like, are you still taking the medication? Like there was definitely this undercurrent that this is an embarrassment. It is an embarrassment that someone on the OT levels has to be taking medication. This reflects negatively on you that you have to take the medication. And so, well, in that respect, she was being treated differently, in the sense that she was receiving this constant pressure. And in fact, she even said that she would go and there were a few Scientology companies that she had tried to apply for jobs at. And the fact that she was taking a medication like that, they didn't want to hire her. Because, yeah, Scientologists definitely do view people who have chronic illnesses. And in her case, it was just epilepsy, who are taking, who have chronic illnesses or are taking medication over long terms of time, that there's something basically wrong with them and that they pose some kind of a risk due to that fact. The constant stress of regging could lead to cancer. Well, again, I already addressed something like that in this video. Okay, are miracles in Scientology a thing? Can you literally be dying of cancers, but you audit away your thetans in a correct way and you can be saved? Oh yeah, that's exactly what Scientologists believe. And, oh, people are asking if I'm in my underwear. This is, I've been doing jiu-jitsu classes and I'm wearing the shorts and the shirt that I wear under my gi. Do you have to be declared a suppressive person, or am I a suppressive person for watching I'm probably just boring PTS? Technically, if you're a Scientologist, you have to be declared a suppressive person in order for people to treat you like a suppressive person. Technically. If you actually just read the bulletins about what a suppressive person is supposed to be. It shouldn't have anything to do with being declared or not declared. It's like you either are one or you aren't one. It's just that Scientology has its procedures they follow for letting everybody know who is one. But technically, I would say the answer to your question would be you don't have to be declared an SP to be an SP. But no, and no Scientologist wouldn't call you an SP just for watching these videos. Like you said, you would just be an old, boring PTS. As a Scientologist, you're not supposed to ask questions. It will be seen as counter to Scientology. Well, I'm not sure what you're referring to in that question, because I would disagree with that question. You're certainly supposed to ask questions, because otherwise, how do they know what answers to give you? But yeah, let's see. People get no. She mentioned Tory Chrisman mentioned recently that she was called a rock slammer. What is the origin or implication of that term? Okay, so a rock slam is a read on the e-meter. And it's supposed to be just like the needle just goes crazy. Like if this is the needle on the e-meter, it's just slashing left and right, savagely, faster than the eye can see. And it's supposed to mean that you have hidden evil intentions on whatever the subject is that you're discussing when this happens on the e-meter. Now, in Scientology, when I've personally never seen a legitimate rock slam on an e-meter. I've only seen mechanically caused rock slams, like there's something wrong with the e-meter and the needle rock slams even when no one's touching it. But if someone's getting auditing and this happens, you're just supposed to write down everything exactly word for word, whatever they're saying at the moment. And more often than not, it happens when someone's talking about subjects relating to L. Ron Hubbard or Scientology or something like that. And when I say it more often happens, I mean this is when you most often hear of it happening. And items relating to Scientology or Hubbard are called list one. Like the list one, there's a list of terms and words having to do with Hubbard and Scientology. And if someone is holding the cans of the e-meter and they're talking about anything to do with Dianetics, Scientology, L. Ron Hubbard, or anything of the like, and the needle rock slams, you're called a list one RSer, a list one rock slammer. And you have hidden evil intentions on the subject of Scientology and L. Ron Hubbard. And if you are a Sea Org member and this happens, you are sent to the RPF, which is the gulag, the reconditioning camp of the Sea Org. And if you're just a normal Scientologist, nothing happens to you. They write it down in your folders, and it's something that you have to address like after OT5 or something like that, or on OT5. So that's what that means. Okay, I don't want to do like a whole 1 hour Q&A today. I just wanted to do the quick video about addressing the subject of Scientologists dying of cancer and explaining what it is about the culture of Scientology that I believe predisposes so many of these Scientologists from dying of cancer and not seeking out diagnosis and treatment early on enough in the course of their cancer to be able to do something about it with simple surgery or simple treatments. I think a lot of times what happens is these Scientologists, when they do eventually go to the doctor, it is so late because they're so not inclined. They're not predisposed to just easily go to a doctor because it's looked down upon. And by the time they do go, they're so late in their treatment that, yeah, they can get chemo. And maybe they've already been given you've only got so much time to live. And then they spend their remaining days getting auditing, getting sicker and sicker and sicker and sicker. All right, let's see. I did see another question here specifically on topic. Do you think Miscavige sees this trend of OTs dying of cancer and wants to stop it to keep more elites in the group so they can donate? Can't say what's going on in his mind. I do think he sees this trend of OTs dying of cancer. If I were to guess, I would say he attributes it to the fact that nobody has ever properly done Scientology correctly before he came along and implemented new procedures on how to correctly audit the OT levels, and that everyone who's ever done it before has just been doing it wrong, and that's why all these guys are dying. And so if he really wanted to stop this trend, he would issue some policies about, regular medical checkups or something like that, or, doing tests to see if your family had a predisposition to, or a history of cancer, and then maybe prioritizing those people getting more doctor's appointments. But then you're getting into the field of preventative medicine, and which has absolutely nothing to do with the field of Scientology and Dianetics. So I don't really see that happening anytime soon. All right, guys, last plug at the end of the video. Check out this 2-hour video I did with Based Mama last week. It was almost a whole week ago we did it now. I guess it was last Wednesday. I don't know. I get lost. And check out the supporters of Leah Remini Facebook group. And that's all I got for today. Talk to you guys soon.